Welcome back to the Lunch Hour with Mr. Credit. And today it's Macro Monday on ESPN Radio 1700.
Welcome back. It's JJ in the hot seat today, filling in for Mr. C. Have a full panel in the studio, bringing it to you today. Chris Wagner, Rancho Financial, Craig Gussin, Auerbach in Gussin, and Seth O'Byrne with the Seth O'Byrne team, Pacific Sotheby's International Realty. You know what? I love going to the Mr. Credit inbox because we get these questions in, and they're from you. They're from you out there that want answers, and we are here to give you the answers. And this one just fills right into what I want to talk about, Seth. So I think it's a great segue. Mr. C, love the show. And you know what? I should say Mr. JJ because, I'm filling in, but I won't do that to Mr. C. Mr. C, love the show. I'm itching to buy a rental property, but it seems like in the beach areas I'm looking in, Mission Beach, Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach, as summer is approaching, the sellers are jacking up their prices. Do you think it is better to wait until the fall, winter, to get into something like this? Itching but patient as well. Thanks, Kareem. So, Seth, it's 80-plus degrees outside right now. It's May. I don't even know if we're going to have, a spring because it seems like we're just going into summer. 2 weeks ago, it was my pool was 90 degrees at home with solar. That's just, with solar going through the solar, it was 90 degrees. Kids are digging it. But, we talk about this seasonality of real estate and the market heating up. Are we there? Is it? What do you do? What does somebody like this do when it comes to this type of proposition?
Well, that's a really good question. And it's there's two sides of that coin. As a buyer, he's right. Sellers are seeing that we're coming into the summer. Prices are starting to float upwards, so they're responding by asking for more. But at the same time, as a buyer, it's not always the bad idea to buy during the spring because that's when the inventory's here. If you're looking for a rare type of property that you don't see to come on the market a lot, sometimes it does behoove you to look during the summer and the spring because that's when the inventory hits their peak. Typically, once we start getting into August, September, October, kids go back to school, people stop looking at real estate as much. Everybody starts tightening their books for that last quarter. And so some of the buyers do drop out of the market, which if you're thinking about supply and demand, that could mean a much better negotiation for a buyer because there may not be multiple offers on properties. But, if you've ever been to the last day of a sale at Nordstrom's, that sometimes can be the September San Diego real estate market. Is you're looking at the size XL that nobody wanted to wear, or a pair of green shoes that just couldn't move. So, and if you don't matter and you're cool to buy that green shoe in North Park or that double XL and Poway, if you don't care and you're just looking for a deal's a deal, sometimes that's a great time to buy property. I think for flippers, that's a great time to buy distressed property under the 3 Ds, debt, divorce, and death. If you get a property like that come on the market in September, sellers are really motivated. But if you're looking for your dream home, you buy your dream home when you find your dream home. And so I think for a lot of pickier buyers who are going to occupy what they're buying, now is a wonderful time to do it, especially, and you can speak to this, from Rancho Financial, rates are going up.
Yeah, that's it. Chris, I want to go to you because, Kareem, here's one of the problems with you waiting, right? You might have the double XL sitting out there or the green shoe come September. Maybe it's the double XL wearing the green shoe come September. Getting at some weird analogies here, Seth.
We're in the weeds here.
Yeah. But we'll pull it. We're looking for condos on the beach, the prime sexy ones. So Chris, as we get into September, the interest rate market has been holding pretty steady now.
Rates have actually come down a little bit in the last month.
So one of the problems that I see with Kareem waiting is not only are you left with less inventory down the road, who knows what's going to be there. You know what's there now. You know where interest rates are now. What do you foresee kind of down the road here when it comes to interest rates?
Yeah, that's a great question, and
I won't hold it to
you get asked that every day by every client, right? Well, should I lock my rate or should I wait a couple weeks? And honestly, from day to day, it's impossible to tell. It's like trying to guess which way the stock market's going to go. Thousands of people try that, and very few are successful, correct?
Sure.
It just doesn't happen. There's so many external forces that you don't even see or think about that they're affecting that there's no possible way to accurately predict it. It's just not possible. But in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the U.S. economy, the economies of the world in general, starting to heal, starting to come back, Europe's coming back, our unemployment rate's inching down. You're seeing businesses with record profits. The stock market's doing fairly well. All those things point to, in addition, you've got the Fed constantly talking about we're cutting, we're not going to keep buying all these bonds forever. I think the combination of all that points to higher rates. I don't think, again, we were talking in the break about, well, if there's a war, that's good for rates. It's a crummy thing to hope for, but it helps rates. So those unforeseen things like that will always be little dips and valleys in the interest rate market. But in general, if you're to do a graph, which way are they going? There's so much pressure pushing them up. I just don't see any other way for them to go. So to Kareem's question, the thing is, if he waits, and let's say he gets a house for $500,000 and he's got a $400,000 mortgage. Well, if the rates are % higher, if he waits and gets a deal and he saves 30, 40 grand on the deal, probably still end up paying more with the higher interest rate if the rates go up. So that's a big factor to look at.
Without a doubt. And Seth, you can attest to this with these beach properties, because I know you're in that market quite a bit. You know that market very well. I mean, somebody that's looking for an investment property, I mean, Kareem, think about this. Think about the cash flow right now. Because if you buy a home right now, it's May, let's say you close on that property in June, you have all summer through the fall, through those those hot months, September, August, sometimes going into October, that you're still renting that thing out. If you wait until the fall or winter, let's say, you could have some dead months on your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think worth thinking about as well is you want to start your leases. Now, if this is a Mission Beach property, you're doing the 9-3 split where you got 3 months of summer on a weekly rental and 9 months to USD or SDSU kids. You really need to lock that thing up before September, because I've sold a lot of Mission Beach properties middle of September or beginning of October. It can be very difficult to rent it again for several months. So, for someone buying truly at the beach that could be vacation rental property, I would venture to say that it's smart to get that thing done now. And at the same time, again, you're so right. Rates are really what make that payment, and your payment is what defines your cash flow, because the rent's not going to change.
Right.
So I completely agree. I think it would be a good time to lock in something now, especially while inventory is high.
Yeah, Kareem, I mean, pull the trigger. I think we've answered the question. I mean, you don't know what's going to be down the road, and that's the problem. So you know what you're getting right now. You know what's on the market right now. Seth O'Byrne can help you with that. I mean, if there's an expert in that market, in the beach community, it's his team. Seth O'Byrne with the O'Byrne team. And Seth, I'm just gonna. Is it okay if I give out your cell? I know
Yeah, sure. Give it. Yeah.
Some people don't like that. It's 858-869-3940. 858-869-3940. You can email us right here at email@mrcredit.org. We'll put you in touch with Seth. I mean, if you want to see a cool website too, I think you probably have the coolest website in the industry. And I'm not just saying. I mean, I know people have wanted to emulate that already. I've talked to people, and they're like, have you seen Seth O'Byrne's website?
I've gotten quite a few calls about that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And
it's a great web. And actually, for free market analysis for anybody listening, you can go. It's one of the first buttons down on the page, right underneath our informational videos. Click free evaluation. We can usually do a free evaluation during a business day and turn it around in 20 minutes.
So that's to find out how much your home might be worth.
Yeah, no obligation at all, with our description and narrative of why we think it's worth what it's worth.
And let me ask you this. I mean, I know this is free, and obviously you're not in the business of refinancing somebody, but if somebody's thinking about refinancing or maybe selling and they just want to know what that value is, can they use that tool? I mean,
Absolutely.
Can they come to you for that?
Absolutely. And lenders all the time ask us to do a market analysis of what we really think this thing's worth. Sometimes you need that to do a refinance to make sure there's enough equity in the home to do that refi. So,
and it might be just you're on the verge of not knowing what to do. I mean, maybe you're a move-up buyer. You think you're okay to move up, but maybe you can better your interest rate, and that will answer that question for you. You can go right to OByrneTeam.com. It's OBYRNETeam.com, or again, just email us at email@mrcredit.org. We have another great question from the Mr. Credit inbox. which talks about values. And I want to get into this because what happens when you enter a contract for real estate and you want to get out? Can you get out? Seth, you get into a contract, and I see it. Chris, I'm sure you see it on your side as well. They just want to get in. They want to get in the house, and Craig, this happens. This is just one of those things, the market's hot. There's multiple bidders. Let's just get in, right? I don't care what we have to do. Just get us in, Seth. What happens when I want to get out?
That's a good question. So in the state of California, the contracts are written by the California Association of Realtors legal team, and they're tweaking it every single year. But the one thing that always remains the same and has been the same for 3-4 decades is the seller has nearly no rights to cancel as long as the buyer's performing. But the buyer has multiple contingencies. So as a buyer, we typically recommend our clients, if they love the home enough to write an offer, and we're in a multiple counter situation and they've got something that they're worried about, that's what the contingency period's about. You can cancel, get your deposit back, and walk away for pretty much any reason under the sun. You can even say you woke up one day, you didn't like the house.
Really?
You can say, I thought it was a bigger garage, my eyes tricked me. Or, I thought it was a different type of community, I decided I didn't like it. I had someone cancel because the neighbor's dog was barking too loud. Unfortunately, as a seller, and a lot of times we're representing sellers, we advise that you got to be very thoughtful. You've got to talk to the lender who originally did your loan. You need to figure out what your payoff is. You need to talk to your CPA. You need to really be prepared because once you go under contract as a seller, as long as the buyer's performing, it's very difficult to get out of a contract. And that is definitely something that we always want to make sure people are very educated on before they go under contract.
So I list my house, and I'm 10 days in, and I just, I'm having a discussion with my wife, and she just breaks down in tears and says, John, we can't sell this house. I love it too much. I mean, what are we doing? We change our mind. What do I do? How do I get out?
That's a really tough question. I get it a lot. I mean, I think this month alone we had that question 4 or 5 times. And the reality is the best way you can do it is approach the buyers, and not from a contractual perspective, but just human being to other human beings. Say, you know what? We made a terrible decision. We need you to help us out. Can we get out of this contract? Because Honey's gonna win them better, number one. And number two, contractually, as long as they're moving forward, they're doing their inspections, they're removing their contingencies, and they're acting in good faith, it's very difficult. Now, if you go down that road and go into mediation, heaven forbid, which I've never been to, knock on wood here, right? You many times a mediator is going to allow you to not sell your house because at the end of the day, it is your home, right? But you go down some really difficult and complicated paths, and the only hope that you have as a seller is that buyer reneges on some of their inspection contingencies, or you can serve them with what's called a notice to perform, which means if they're not moving forward contractually in a timely manner, they're not acting in good faith. At that point, you can unilaterally cancel the contract. But I always caution sellers, you've got to really be ready to do what you're about to do because the buyer has a million ways they can walk away. The seller has almost none.
That's really interesting. Wow. You don't really think about that, right? Mm-hmm. You think about, hey, you know what? Let's just put our house on the market and see what we can get. Right? Mm-hmm. And then you get the buyer that comes around and gives you exactly what you want. And now you're in contract. And now you got to move. I mean, and that's a big decision. You got to pack up boxes, you got to pack up the kids, you got to pack up the family, and you got to get out at a certain point in time. So it's really interesting. We've never even talked about this, Seth.
Yeah.
On the show. We've never even talked about it.
It's a really interesting concept because, and I get into it sometimes when, like you said, and I'm glad you brought that up, you get exactly what you want. I put a home on the market, fairly recently for $1.2 million because the seller said he wanted $1.2 million. Well, we got him $1.2 million. But then he decided he wanted $1.25 million. And he thought, well, if someone paid me $1.2 million in the first week, that means I underpriced it. Well, in this market, that usually means you priced it right. Typically, homes that sell are going to sell in the first week or two. And if they're not going to sell, they may never sell.
What do you do? What do you do in that situation? I mean, you got exactly what you asked for.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you go back and ask for more? I mean, what do you do?
Unfortunately, you don't. I mean, I wish I had I'm a professional negotiator by trade and have been for a third of my life, but I can tell you this, the contract's the contract. So what avenues you have are quite honestly going back to the buyer And in some ways, sellers kind of make the buyer's lives a little tough when you're under contract, because if you make their lives a little tough or you don't work with them on repairs, they might say, it's not worth the trouble anyways. But at that point, you do not, and in fact, in that particular situation, the buyers actually walked away from the transaction after their inspection, which completely saved the day for my client. but again, that's you don't want to negotiate based on hopes and chances. So I think as a seller, the best thing I can say is talk to your CPA, talk to your lender, talk to the people that are in your corner as your advisors well in advance of listing your home for sale. Yeah. Because then you can be ready if you go under contract to perform on it.
Yeah, Seth, that's amazing information, and that's why we have you in here. I mean, you've been on the show for I don't know how many months. It's a long time. And you're on other shows in San Diego. You're on TV as part of the American Dream. You're all over the place, really. And it's one of the reasons why you are is because you know what you're doing. If you're looking to buy, if you're looking to sell, just reach out. Just email us here, right? Email at mrcredit.org. If you want to call Seth directly, get him on his cell phone, 858-869-3940. Selling a home, buying a home is a huge transaction that you need to know exactly what you're doing. I want to thank everybody for coming to the studio. Craig, thank you for being here on this Macro Monday. Chris Wagner, thank you for being a first-time offender on the show. Appreciate the time. Seth, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Lori Miller, 1700 ESPN. We'll be back tomorrow.